All right, in this video, we're going to go over the subtractive method of relief sculpture. Once again, subtractive method means you are taking clay away. So we are going to be carving directly into our tile. Now, make sure first that you have your tile design transferred. If you do not, please watch the video on how to transfer your design onto your tile first. Before we get started on doing the subtractive method, you're going to need another tool in order to actually carve the clay away. So typically in ceramics, we have what is called a loop tool. So all of these right here are examples of loop tools. If you happen to have purchased a ceramics tool kit, you're going to want to use the smallest loop tool that you have. That might be this guy, it might be a smaller one, totally depends on what you've purchased. I'm going to be using this in the video, but I'll also be showing some alternate methods of carving out that clay, because most people do not have these lying around. So what you need to do before we get started is grab a tool that you can use to carve the clay, carve into the clay. The best tool that you could probably find around your house would be a paper clip. Paper clips are really helpful for creating the loop tool because they're very similar, you can see. Someone has used a bobby pin. Bobby pins work. A plastic spoon or fork. If you have a plastic fork, you can use the back side of it. I wouldn't recommend using any actual dishware because you don't want to accidentally ingest any clay if it's not cleaned properly. So anything that you can find around your house that you can kind of scoop, but very controlled scooping. So nothing too large or too dull that you can't properly scoop that clay out of. If you don't have any tools, no worries. There is a way to do it with toothpick and the modeling tool provided in your toolkit. Just a little bit more difficult, but it is definitely possible. So go ahead, pause the video, find your tool, and then unpause when you are ready. All right, so we're going to begin the subtractive method. I'm going to first start out using a loop tool so that you guys can see the proper method of doing it in a ceramic setting. No matter what tool you have, however, you are going to want to use your toothpick. So again, the subtractive method is carving into the clay. The big thing when you're carving into the clay is that you don't want to carve so far in that you break through to the bottom of the tile or even get like halfway. You don't want to carve in too deep, otherwise your tile is going to be really weak and it may break, especially with the air dry clay. So do make sure, no matter what, keep in mind, don't carve too deep. Even if you want it to look really cool, stand out a lot, if you carve too deep, all that effort is going to totally break in front of you and it's going to be sad. And then I will cry and then you'll cry and everyone's going to be crying and it's just sad. But as we start the subtractive method, no matter what we do, no matter what tool we use, we want to outline areas that we are going to be subtracting. Now, when we are subtracting the clay, it is the areas we want to not stand out. So if I want my fox and the fire to stand out, I want to carve out the background. So I don't want the background sticking out. I want the fox and the fire to stick out. So I have to get rid of some of that depth on the background. Very, very important that you guys don't accidentally carve your subjects. Otherwise, they're going to sink in and you're going to lose a lot of your details, unless that's totally what you're going for. But just heads up, most people aren't. Carve areas around your subject. So I'm going to start with a section of my tile that I want to cut out. And I'm going to go right underneath the fox's mouth here. And I have this whole area here that I want to carve. I'm just going to break this up into sections so I can really focus on subtracting. And I am outlining with my toothpick that area that I want to carve. So as you can see, I have all of this background I want to get rid of. I'm just going to focus on one section at a time so I don't get ahead of myself. I outlined that area that I'm going to carve with that toothpick. So pushing in a little bit further into clay so it's really clear where I want to carve, that I'm not getting lost in my lines. Next, with my tool, I'm using the loop tool first. I'll show the other ones in a second. I am then going to start the process of very carefully scooping the clay out of that section. Again, I don't want to go too deep. If I go too deep, I'm going to break my tile. If it doesn't break now, it may break later. We don't want to risk that. So I am scooping out that clay from that section, not going too deep, making sure to remove the clay as I work so that my tool's not getting all junked up. I'm being really careful. And you can see how nice the loop tool is, where it just really pulls that clay out of that section. Being really careful around my lines. If you find yourself accidentally cutting into any of the actual subject matter, you just take it, clean it up, and I usually go back and kind of sharpen up some of that area, just really pressing lightly with the toothpick. So it's really clear what needs to stand out. Now generally, most people who subtract backgrounds are going to want the entire background to be really level. So in a second, I'm going to smooth out my area that I have carved. There we go. So I'm going to smooth out that area. Careful not to mess up my design. And there it is, carved and subtracted. So now you can see the fox is starting to stand out. Now I can tell I did it right because it's not too thin. There, I can feel thickness between the bottom of the clay and my sunken in area. Now I'm going to do the same thing again, but with the other tools. So I'm not going to use loop tool this time. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next section that I'm going to carve out. So again, I'm outlining the section that I'm going to carve. I'm going to tackle this area over here. I got a lot of intricate lines on my design, so I want to be really careful not to mess that up. Because I said, well, why not? Challenge myself. Tons of difficult lines. You can see how if I mess up, I just smooth it out on the clay itself, and she is fine. There we go. So again, I've outlined the section that I'm going to carve into. And now I'm going to show you guys how to use the paper clip. Now the bobby pin will work exactly the same way as the loop tool, but with the paper clip, what I would do is take the paper clip, unfold it so it looks like an S, like that, and then pinch in both rounded bits. So pinching that in, pinching that in. So now I have a double loop tool out of a household item. This works, again, exactly the same way as the loop tool did. So once I have my paper clip, again, very carefully, not going too deep, kind of holding, I'll get closer to the camera here, holding the paper clip slightly sideways to kind of use the wire itself and digging that clay. So the paper clip does slip a little bit because it's not meant for this. So just be really careful as you're carving that clay. So paper clip works really nice. If you have a plastic spoon or fork, spoon you can use the tip, fork you can't. So I'm going to grab the back end of my fork here and scoop. So again, see, I'm just scooping out that clay like so. So that's how you would use a tool like that. If you don't have any tools to scoop with, like I said, I can use a toothpick and a modeling tool. The toothpick, once again, is to kind of clear up any of those areas that I'm carving. If there's small areas, so like this right here, I want to get rid of that line, I can just take the side of the toothpick and scrape it off. So that's one way with the toothpick. With the modeling tool, it works the same as the loop tool, holding it onto the side, sort of just scraping into the surface of the tile. Again, it's a little bit messy, but she will do, and it'll still get that effect that you want. So you can see I'm carefully, see how long I'm taking on it, carefully removing that clay. And as I get into that really tight area, I want to use the toothpick and scrape the clay away there. Like so. So any of those tools works. Whatever you choose, you're going to want to make sure the end result is nice and clean, getting rid of any of that gunky stuff the best you can. And then if you need to clean up the lines around, so I want that tail to really stand out still, just taking that toothpick, kind of cleaning it up. Like so. So you do that for every single spot on your project that you want to have subtracted. If you are using the combination method, I highly recommend doing your subtracted stuff first before you do the additive method. Email me if you have any questions. Get all the stuff that you want gone, subtracted. Try to be as clean as you can and try not to puncture through. You can always add clay back, but it is very messy to do so, so try to avoid it the best you can. All right, guys. Email me if you have any questions. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.